Hello and welcome to the show. I am here at the Bajarama circuit with 3 more vehicles to be driven till destruction. Starting with the Satsuma. No, not the car from My Summer Car, although it is a vehicle based on a Datsun, this time though a much older Datsun. I have gone for the more powerful version, the 1.2 litre variant. It is not massively fast, I'll be honest. It's not exactly the quickest car around here. However, it is likely to take a lot of killing. This thing is ridiculously strong. I've briefly messed about with it in other places, and it does take a fair old beating before it stops driving. So it might last a long time. We will have to wait and see. The problem for the Satsuma is that it isn't quite quick enough to make any of these jumps really cleanly. So we're always going to be clonking on the landing like that, and that's not going to do the suspension any good. Although for now, we are relatively okay. It's going to be... Ooh! That's a big hit on the rear of the chassis. We've got a lot of steering damage, in fact, from all of that. That's if I'm not touching the steering. That's... We've had cars that are missing wheels that have driven better in a straight line than this. That is very, very true. So that's... well, that's probably a concern. You can see from the little kind of damage indicator that we've got going on here, the nodes and so on for this vehicle are incredibly tough. It is unlikely that we are going to buckle the chassis up to the point where it can no longer continue. However, all of that force has got to go through something, and that's the suspension. I fear a loss of a wheel or lost steering is probably going to be what kills the Satsuma in the end. That's a hard knock on radiator springs. The radiator itself is still okay. I think there is so much incredibly strong bodywork in front of it that it might take a while before we start hitting the radiator. But we were nowhere near clearing it on that first attempt, and as the steering is getting more and more broken, I think we're only going to get worse. And again, that's another big impact across the jump. Okay, we're fine. We are, surprisingly, again, no massive... We're starting to lose a door. The driver's door is hanging on by a single hinge. This motocross section, I don't know whether it'll be terrible for the Satsuma or not, because again, we're probably not going to be going fast enough to have any real harm done to the car. The steering is so wonky I couldn't actually get it back across for the jump. The suspension is doing a remarkably good job. It's bouncy. It's bouncing the car back up, and I'm not sure that, yeah, I think the left-hand side is completely collapsed, but for now, oh, that was a nasty twist. For now, the suspension is doing a good enough job of cushioning the blows with this vehicle. Are we gonna... No, not a hope in hell of even... we got... I guess we got the single jump there done. We're not going to get a double done there. We are going to land back on our wheels, however. The steering damage is horrendous. I am actually struggling now to drive this car. It is pulling so badly to the left. If I could probably make it around this corner up here. I'm not going to touch the steering. I'm not touching the steering. It is pulling so badly to the left that it is going around that corner too well. I'm having to... That's ridiculous. Now, as we aren't getting any speed at all across these jumps, we're going to hit the landing of everything. Suspension is now starting to be unhappy. I think suspension everywhere is starting to be unhappy in this car. Oh, God. If we could start smashing the front wheels up in a different direction rather than... Ooh, I actually think that front left might not be doing anything. That front left... Oh, no, it's still doing... It just flap around wildly when it's in the air. For a second, I thought it just been completely disconnected. Now, it does still steer, but it flaps about when we get into the air. So something snapped in that front left corner. Something's not right there. Well, we're still going. We've had no radiator damage. We've had no... Well... massive mechanical failures on this first lap. Come on, car. Then we don't really need to... We do kind of need to steer, because otherwise we just sort of spin around in a circle. We're going to be really struggling for any more speed. Now, this might help Satsuma's case in some way, in that for some of these jumps, we've now got so little speed that we're not going to be hitting the landing hard. Although we are going to, like this one here, for example, we are still accelerating away. It's another... it's not a horrible crunching landing, but it's just bending, I think, more and more bits up in the car. Certainly the steering is unhappy. Oh, I don't know quite what went on there. Is the steering just refusing to respond at all? Okay, no, we're good. We're fine. We're still going in the Satsuma. Radiator Springs is going to be a non-fun area for this because, well, we didn't make it the first time. We are now slower than ever. We are going to smack straight into the landing zone. And there's not much I can do about it, quite frankly. Well, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed we don't get it killed on this time around. Oh, we're hitting the front worse and worse. It's just going to buckle our wheels even more and restrict our steering possibilities. Oh, it's only 33 miles an hour. That's heavy into the front. Oh, we do appear to have lost steering. Now, I might be able to just coax the car back onto the course. Yeah, okay, we are steering ever so slightly now. Okay, we've coaxed the car back onto the course, but can I make it around the hairpin? Oh, not really. Not really. I'm trying to handbrake it around. I can't do it. The steering's gone. I'm full. You can see on the steering wheel, that is full. It's full right lock and there's nothing. It's done. That is destroyed steering. That is the steering in its... That's where the steering wants to sit on the car. In fact, it doesn't actually steer... Oh no, tell a lie. It does actually ever so slightly kind of steer to the left more. That's peculiar. But yeah, steering to the right just makes the wheels straight. That's a really interesting failure. It's like the car is so incredibly strong that as it's crashing, I think it's just twisting the entire steering rack and the whole front end, because that's when I'm not on the steering at all. So that's really bizarre, but that is the Satsuma out. As per the rules, if I can't get around a corner without having to use reverse, it will be the vehicle finished. And the Satsuma, I think it's only the second or third car. Oh, kind of the third car. The Moonhawk went out in a blaze of glory. That was fires and the tyres were burnt out and everything died on that. The Mercedes is one of the few cars that got out just simply from complete loss of steering. The Satsuma is an odd one. It's more from an entire twisted steering, more than anything in this. But it goes out having completed just on its second lap. Incredibly tough car, but the steering not strong enough to survive Radiator Springs. So, up next, we have got a weird contraption, but a highly requested one. This is the half-Piza. As you can see, well, it is two front ends of a car stuck together. The front ends can be driven separately, however you can choose to weld them together to create this contraption. Now, this does give us an advantage, potentially, because we kind of have two lives. You see, the front ends, either front end can be driven separately. For example, we can control the bit that's currently what you would expect to be the front, and that can go forward, or we can drive the bit at the other end. That can also go forward. So there are two engines in this. If we break the entire front end of the car, we can swap and then drive it from the rear, potentially. So that is there to help. However, I fear about the structural integrity of this car, because they are literally just nodes kind of stuck together between the two vehicles, which means where normally you have a lot of bodywork to absorb impacts and so on, this doesn't really have the same structural rigidity going on with it. So I fear that when we inevitably hit something hard, it's going to have a lot of problems. But I'll have to wait and see what it can do. I have gone for the faster version of this in the hope that we might be able to get some smoother landings like that. That's exactly what we want from this car. If we can keep enough speed up in this, we might be okay. Although already you can see the chassis of my current front end is having some issues. It's kind of warped already quite a lot. We may have potential problems with the chassis bowing in the middle. Oh god, third gear is not a good gear to go to at any point in time, it seems. That's just, there is no performance from the engine. Again, the chassis is buckling quite categorically in the middle there, but never mind. Okay, Radiator Springs. This is where it matters. We've got to get across here and get across here well. Come on, car, accelerate away. Oh, we've made it. Just. Oh, we've made it, but in making it, I think that has used up our first life, hasn't it? Because we... Oh, can we drive? I'm not actually sure. We certainly can't steer. Okay. Well, life number 2. You are the better... Well, the better condition end of the car. Now, we have got a wheel now flapping about. It's no worse, I guess, than when a covet snaps one of its rear wheels off, but it is still there and it's still sort of causing friction. Oh, that's not a good angle to be going across those jumps at. That's just landing very, very heavily on the front. We have lost the bumper, and now we see the issue with the chassis starting to bow in the middle. I fear we're going to get the car stuck, possibly beached. I don't know. I mean, we can detach the cars. We can go for a cluster bot idea if it's all going completely terribly wrong. Come on, get across there. We're fine. I mean, the radiator in this end of the car is still okay. I'd actually wonder if we... Oh, bloody hell, this engine is god awful. There we go. We're across. We just have to keep it in first because we try and put it up into second and there is absolutely no go-to. Oh, actually got some airtime across that one. There we go. The turbos on it have just got the worst turbo lags. If we now go up into second, there is nothing and nothing and nothing. Oh, we might actually now just about be going quick enough, good enough corner to try and get up enough speed. Come on, make the first... No, it's not made the first jump at all there, has it? And now we're going to go back down into first gear. Still driving though. In fact, this end of the car has been far more resilient than the other end. The other end was out very, very quickly, although that sort of crunching isn't going to help. If we do break the radiator, which I'm amazed has survived this long, I have a sneaking suspicion the way that we're having to drive this car, it will not last long, because we are literally having to drive it almost buzzing the limiter the entire way if we want to get any sort of movement out of it. We've got to rev the nuts off it, because otherwise we've got no power, no drive at all. All that rear wheel was causing some mega issues there. It just kind of started dragging us sideways. Oh, now we've lost all go. Come on. Well, that's not helped at all there, has it? Oh, we're down the other side. I'm thinking we've got big chassis issues at the moment. We may, well, creep around to complete our first lap. The issue being is that the chassis are now so bent in the middle that they are almost constantly dragging on the floor. There we go, that is our first lap completed. But it isn't only a just one, and the wheel at the back there is not really helping matters. Can we get any speed up in this car at all? Well, I guess we're up to 30 miles an hour again, and as soon as we do, the rear wheel flaps and throws us about. Oh, get off that part of the course. Things are about to go badly wrong for us. No, we managed to recover that one. I can't get the car away. Don't want to go to the hay bales, okay? The hay bales would not be fun. The hay bales would not be fun at all. Oh, third gear is not a good idea. Okay, third gear is a completely unusable one, so we're not going to touch third gear. Second is pretty much where we're going to have to leave it. I don't think there's any... We might have to go down to first as well at some points to try and get some movement in the car. It's still just about doing 20 miles an hour around places. Oh, come on, you stupid, stupid Bazima. Uh-oh, we're in trouble here. We are... We are in a lot of trouble here. Well, that's it, beach. Okay, well, we're going to go for the... Oh, no. The main... Okay, no, wait, we do have a plan. We do have the main... Because the main part of the car that I started with is the one that controls the node. So, separate the car. We've now got... Oh, there we go. Right. We have now got the front end. The front end... Well, no, was initially... Oh, was initially the back end has also got some issues with a lack of steering. Not quite sure where we're going anymore. We are... in a bit of... what the... I think it might be done. Well, that's it. I think that's it for the half-Piza. The issues were, I think the chassis got so bent that it is now catching on the floor, and that's stopping me steering. The combination of the two bits was keeping the centre just about off the ground enough to get some steering, but as we came to a crest of a hill, we were dragging bodywork, we couldn't get any speed, we beached it on a hill, and in trying to rescue it, we've now lost any sort of semblance of drive. So the half-Piza, amazingly, made it onto its second lap. Not something I was necessarily expecting to say, but there we go. with a completely bent and buckled and useless chassis and having to use an extra life, it did make it. Not the car I would perhaps recommend for tackling a Baja circuit, but there we go. And for our final vehicle today, I've got a Moonhawk, but as you can see, it is not exactly a normal one. No, this is an off-road configuration for it. Now, you may well be thinking, isn't that a massive advantage for a car that was already pretty damn good around this course? Theoretically, yes, it would be. Of course, suspension designed a lot more for dealing with bumps and jumps, and there are plenty of them around this course. However, in practice, it doesn't always end up that way. You see, there are a couple of downfalls with this car. First of all, it is crazily powerful and still rear-wheel drive with suspension that, while perhaps good for dealing with bumps, not so good with dealing with this much power. It is very oversteery and quite difficult to put any of its power down, which could get us in trouble coming towards jumps. The other issue is, and this is what does tend to happen with the more off-road orientated vehicles that tackle this course, the wheels are more prone to incredibly heavy landings and kind of snapping the wheels. The wheels kind of bend a bit more because as we're hitting the ground, all the suspension and the wheels and so on are taking all of the force. With a normal car, we're actually hitting the ground, the suspension compresses, and the chassis and the bodywork actually ends up taking quite a bit of the damage. So while this will keep engine, drive shaft, probably radiator... Oh, I didn't want that in third there, did I? That was a poor mistake by me. We're okay? Yeah, we'd lost a headlight, but that's about it. Yeah, while this will keep driveline, radiator and so on alive for much longer, we run the risk on some of these heavier landings of actually snapping wheels if there is if we slightly twist on takeoff or slightly misposition the car, which is quite easy to do when the back end wants to move around constantly. Gotta be careful with these vehicles. It is so far so good though with the Moonhawk. As I say that, I'm not sure if one of the front corners hasn't collapsed slightly enough. I think we are okay. Oh, the other issue is a bouncy suspension. Such soft suspension can lead to the car bouncing around on landings, as we see there. Now that, oh god, I had a momentary panic there because we started nosediving. That can cause issues. Again, it's if the car starts bouncing around on a heavy landing. We might have got the initial landing perfect, but the car bounces and twists and then lands on a wheel, can go over on a wheel, and much like, you know, twisting your ankle or so on, that will snap a wheel. So we've got to be careful of that. All that problems as well if we're going to fly very nose up. I want to fly a little bit nose up, but I don't really want to quite fly that nose up. What killed the original Moonhawk was the fuel tank. We ruptured the fuel tank and that set fire to everything on the car, including the tyres, and we eventually lost steering and went straight on and off the course. Now, the fuel tank in this is less likely to get hit. As I said, the off-road suspension does a good job of keeping the chassis and etc. away from the heavy landings, so the fuel tank at the back there, where you can see if we get a very awkward landing how it might get ruptured, but that's less likely to see this car out. What I expect it to be is the loss of a wheel. Oh, as we say that, we're going to go for a front flip. Well, to be fair, a front flip is actually about one of the best crashes we can have in this series, because all of the damage... Oh, I'm trying to flip the car over. We've lost a front left tyre. That's a peculiar one. We can live with that. That's not a disaster. I guess it might have been caught on the floor as it was getting rolled over. Yeah, I can live with losing a tyre, because it's still got kind of use of the wheel and it's not causing us problems turning. Why I was saying a front flip isn't the worst thing to happen to the car is most of the damage will be done on the roof. Don't really care if the roof gets damaged, quite frankly. Makes no difference to the car's drivability. Now, if I was inside the car, I might be saying different things, but for the purpose of this series, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter one bit if the roof line gets damaged. I mean, we've seen some of the cars, some of the ridiculous conditions the roofs had ended up in. What was it, the Civic, I think, that went out? Was it last time the Civic went out, or the time before? Whatever it was, the Civic, that the roof was basically, I think, lower than the top of the seats after that car had finished. So, yeah, not an ideal condition to be trying to drive the car in, but for the sake of this series, completely and utterly irrelevant. Doesn't stop the vehicle moving. Either way, our off-road Moonhawk has completed its first lap. relatively uneventful, aside from the loss of that tyre. The suspension does seem to be holding up quite well. Also, with off-road suspension like this, if the suspension does collapse, we then have real handling problems to look out for. It seems to be doing its job for now, but how many more landings it's going to survive? Oh, that's not good. Oh, that's it shifted the rear axle. The entire rear axle has come to the left. That's not great in terms of drivability. Well, I say that, we are still going... We're still going along. It's not great in terms of controllability, is perhaps the better way of putting it. Oh, especially when we've got this much power that's wanting to escape through the rear. I'm hoping... Oh, God, stop twisting and bouncing. We got away with that one. We got away with that one, as it lost a lot of speed while twisting, so when it finally kind of went round, we weren't carrying too much speed, and we didn't land nastily on a wheel somewhere. We're going to... Oh, I'm not sure that rear suspension is doing any good anymore. I think it's going to throw us about from now on. Come on, here we go, towards Radiator Springs. Not massively fast. Oh, and we do get the radiator this time around. Car goes for a tumble, will come back down. Another thing with these off-road vehicles, I think that axle's shifted even more, is that if they do roll, they tend to roll spectacularly. Higher centre of mass with them. They do like to go for a big tumble. Now, tumbles tend not to do too much in the way of damage, because if the car's rolling, it's dissipating energy, rather than, you know, having to dissipate that energy through bending of metal. Although it can roll and land awkwardly on a wheel, or catch a wheel as it's going and snap a wheel off, and that will not be very good at all. We're going to bounce, and kind of the rear axle sort of saved us the way it twisted us back onto the track. That's okay. I wonder, can we lose the entire rear axle? Is that a thing? I don't know if we can snap off bits like that in this game. I think it's the bar stow, the entire front subframe can come off, but the bar stow, the driveline dies long before that can ever happen. There was a crunch as something got hit. The driveline on this could be a concern, because it's now not an off-road vehicle anymore. With the damage to the suspension... what a bit of timing from me. Bloody typical. The damage to the suspension had made the car so that it was now starting to, well, have the same ride height as the normal car, and catching... I'm actually very surprised that it went there. I would have thought Radiator Springs would be where it would go again, if anywhere, because that wasn't a particularly big hit. It just caught the drive shaft, and that went. So, that means the off-road Moonhawk is not as good as the normal one. While the damage to the tyre was not helpful when righting the car, it's actually the rear that was the bigger problem. The problems with the front tyre didn't really affect us very much. It was the rear axle damage. As that's got shifted, but you can see how far that's got shifted to the left-hand side. That's not good in terms of controllability, and as the off-road suspension collapsed and got worse and worse throughout, the car got lower and lower to the ground until we eventually clipped it on one of these crests, taking out the drive shaft. So, yeah, that is kind of not quite how I expected the car to go. I'll be honest, I thought we were going to have a wheel ping off. I thought we were going to have a wheel ping off and lose steering and something along those lines, but... was not to be. The drive shaft would be the weak link of this Moonhawk's attempt. So it is on to our results table, and the off-road Moonhawk would go furthest for the day, although nothing made it off the second lap. The drive shaft failure for the Moonhawk would see it in 20th place. It beats the 8x8 utility truck, beats the hill climb Covet, but it can't go further than the H15 van. Kind of a surprise in the way that it went down. Not so much that it went out in lap 2, I could imagine the wheels picking off and so on, but yeah, that drive shaft go is an interesting one. We have to go a bit further down to find the Satsuma in 26th place. Makes it the furthest of the vehicles to have died on Radiator Springs, because it was sort of killed by steering failure in a rather weird sort of steering rack twisting incident, but there we go. Further down we find the half-Piza in 36th place, with that interesting chassis issues. It does beat the Legrand, it beats the sort of stripped down Bolide, the 94 Covet, and so on, although it doesn't go further than the diesel Covet, the slammed D series, the Delta 88, or indeed the standard Bolide. Certainly some interesting sights and spectacles went on in this particular episode. As ever, I will put links to all of the mods I have used in the description so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.